Hey friends, Ernie here, the trader of futures. I sound so excited. But there are some big problems in the cryptoverse. And it's my job alone, to point them out. And I'm going to talk today about governance and the lack of governance in the crypto world, or maybe it's really just an active or an afterthought. I was going to think active something. Now, definitely an afterthought. Now, governance, at least in the utopian mind of the crypto fantastic, is not necessarily government. Oh no, you don't want to think about it as government. And they truly really want to kind of avoid the whole idea of governance, as noted in the complete lack of governance and the issues that we had with Bitcoin, trying to figure out whether or not we wanted SegWit or Lightning, and how are we going to implement these things? Should we make the block bigger? Blah, blah, blah. Who's going to make these decisions? Who's going to have the power? How are we going to vote on it? Is there a fair way to do it and avoid all the appearance of centralization? Because you can't have things that are centralized. And to a degree, I definitely agree with that. Now, but up until this point, the crypto world, it's really all over the place in terms of governance. And we've seen a recent story with EOS and their lack of implementation of any solid governance model. And this is because they really weren't interested in building this incredible cryptocurrency as much as they were interested in collecting $4 billion. And just recently, they had a sort of a snafu over governance. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about this and what cryptos are really prepared or taking governance in a serious light, because when you start developing a system that is used for transfer of value across a wide segment of a population, there are going to be issues that are going to come up. There is going to be technical as well as individual issues. And those things need to be resolved, and they need to be resolved in a consistent and efficient way. I mean, currently, governance in the crypto world is all over the place. In some instances, it's basically mob rule. Others, they kind of leave it up to regulation, or they're waiting for regulation to tell them what to do. Those are the fails. And then there are those that make it up as you go along, and there are a few that will also have the forethought to put some kind of governance model in place. And I have to give credit to EOS, and at least they thought about it, but not enough to actually try it or test it and make it better or improve upon it or make it work. Now, Hashgraph is probably one of the few exceptions, although it hasn't gotten to the public stage yet to sort of test it out. They're testing it out privately, where they have a comprehensive governance model. So, what is governance? What is governance up against? I guess I was trying to think of how does it fit into this. You need governance, but there's an impedance there. And the thing is that in crypto, the constant argument is over whether the ledger is valid, based on some thin line between just how private or public it is, or how permissioned or permissionless it is. And this kind of level or degree of purity assessment is kind of a never-ending argument. And it all comes down to how decentralized it is, or censorship resistant. And this all kind of boils down to, whether the degree to which there's immutability in the ledger. What is immutability? That means that it can't be changed. Things that once they get in the ledger, that's it. And that's what, at least according to the crypto utopians, believe, that true immutability equals censorship resistant. Because if you can't change it, then you can't you can't usurp laws. You can't get around something. It's a dogma that these people that have the sort of utopian ideal want to believe in, that somehow you can have this sort of uniform rule base across the board. And they're resisting governance because it really is telling them how flawed that is, that utopian world doesn't exist where people will just find a way to naturally resolve their grievances, and that some people won't act or be bad actors. So one argument is that without immutability, the ledger or blockchain really is no better than a SQL database. And I understand that. I mean, that's true. But maybe that's not what we should be going after. Maybe we should be developing rules that try to bring us closer to this immutability ideal and still recognize that it is something to strive for but can never be achieved. I mean, even SQL databases have, you can put some kind of immutable API in front of it and make it seem immutable, so it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be at the core where it's unchanging. And these are the real issues that a governance model really needs to resolve. How do you create a system that can make decisions on behalf of the world, of the cryptoverse, I guess you could say. And one of the reasons why this is so disdained by these purists is that it means that you're going to have to ultimately relinquish some power to some people. Now, there are different ways that you can sort of rotate them or vote on them on a periodic basis, or limit their terms. I mean, all of this is starting to sound more and more like the United States Constitution. And the one thing that they are really missing is that realization, or that come to reality moment, that there is no pure way, there just simply is no pure way to guarantee that we have all good actors, that everyone will be okay with immutable ledgers, and that decentralization is not the panacea, even though they want it to be. Because ultimately, someone that has the power, or some group that has the power, their job is to essentially change the rules, to control transactions, freeze accounts, perhaps be able to replay things or a sequence of transactions, back them off in case something bad happened, and to undo a wrong and make it right. The other problem is that they don't want to have any sort of accountability if there are problems. So if someone does do something so egregious that might, in the real world, require them to be punished or banished, they don't want that, because it's antithetical to the whole utopian ideal, the crypto idealist utopia. So what it comes down to is that certain members need to be bestowed a power of decision making. Perhaps they get voted on periodically if the community doesn't like giving up certain parties their power. But again, this is antithetical to the whole utopian ideal. What they're really missing is that governance itself needs to be decentralized. That the network itself needs to be compartmentalized into maybe something very similar to what we have in the United States. States, communities, localities that all have control over their own particular governance, and then that kind of bubbles up. See, the problem is that we're thinking about crypto from the large, as if, and this is the real problem I have with it, is that most people are thinking about it as kind of almost a Marxist ideal, this, one rule controls all. When in fact it should be, instead of top down, it should be bottom up. And that's the fatal flaw of cryptocurrencies and why I believe that they will not work in their current incarnation. We need to adopt something that's very similar to our U.S. Constitution, where the rights emanate from the individual, where that is the most important thing. And then disputes and resolution starts at the local level and then moves its way up. Perhaps there are states that have the ability to sort of experiment with certain governance models. And if they are adopted and more states adopt it, maybe the entire cryptoverse can then adopt it as sort of maybe a federal type model or rule set. So I'm going to put a lot more thought into this. There's a lot of philosophical renderings that are going to emerge from this. But I think what it comes down to is that by taking that kind of utopian ideal and this kind of global idea that everything can be kind of uniform across everything is really misguided. And in the current form, if that's the way we're going with crypto, they're doomed for failure. And that's the way it is, in my opinion. See you next video.